I would agree with that. Now, what about Mary? What about those people that say, and this is what I've heard, that the rich are not charitable enough? They take their money, they kind of squirrel it away. They don't give it to people who are truly in need, and it's the middle class that does all the charity, but rich people aren't that charitable.
Well, I haven't heard that, but it may or may not be true. I did see a study one time where someone tried to figure out how much better off people would be if we took all the rich people and basically took all their money away and distributed it to the poor. And the difference wasn't very big because there are few rich people and many poor people. Now, the libertarian solution really for poverty is to do away with it. And the way we can do away with it is not taking one person's money and giving it to another, but increasing the prosperity of a nation. And this is an interesting thing that even the World Bank, which is not a libertarian organization, has figured this out. For many years they said, well, if we have economic growth, the poor will suffer. And then they actually did the studies and found out that the poor benefited the most, because if you doubled the country's prosperity, the rich people got twice as rich, and so they could afford a fancier car. But the poor people got twice as rich, too, and that made the difference between watching their children starve and giving them not only enough to eat, but enough to take them to a place where they could get educated. So what you can see very clearly is when you have prosperity, the poor are the real beneficiaries because they haven't even begun to meet their basic needs, let alone get luxuries. So, and the way to make a country prosperous, again, is to have economic freedom. And there's some really great studies out on that. And of course, I talk about them in Healing Our World for those who are interested in that. But all we have to do, really, is to lower government spending, lower taxes, and reduce regulations, have a free market and trade, and the country will go from being bankrupt, literally, as New Zealand was in the 80s, to a prosperous country.
Don't we, the thing that always bothers me with class warfare arguments is that don't we want to encourage as many rich people as we possibly can have? I mean, isn't it a good thing to have more rich people rather than less rich people? Or someone who argues...
Everyone should be rich.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if you look at the former Soviet Union, you look at Russia, they have a lot of people who are impoverished, and I think they miss the point that if you don't put the restrictions in place and you allow people to go out there and make their way, you'll get more of what you want, which is people that are doing well. I mean, you're just going to, like you mentioned, there's no utopia. You're still going to have poor people, but at least the poor people have a chance. Someone who's not doing well has a chance to do well.
Well, they can change their station in life through education, hard work, or whatever a good idea even. But
That's right.
But they can also do better even at that station because the wealth of the entire nation has risen.
That's right, and you can just look at different countries. Like John Stossel had a great special on this one year. What he did is he tried to open a business in Hong Kong, New York City, and India. And in Hong Kong, which of course at that point in time had the highest per capita income in the world, this was before China took it over, it took him, less than a day to get a business license and set himself up. In New York City, it took him several weeks. And in India, where of course there's a lot of poverty, it was going to take 5 years, and he might not ever get the business license. So you can see the difference. You can see the impact that government regulation has on a person's ability to start their own business and earn money for themselves. I mean, if you have to wait 5 years to feed your family, it's just not going to work.
So Jim made a good point about the class warfare, and it reminds me of the yacht tax, I think, from a decade ago or something like that, where the idea was that, these rich people aren't paying enough, so we're going to tax their yachts. So every time they buy a yacht, they're going to pay a higher tax, and which I'm sure you're aware, what ended up happening is the rich people just decided to keep their money and said, okay, well, we're not going to buy as many yachts then, and that didn't hurt them at all. They didn't really lose any more money. What happened is all the middle class people who actually make the yachts are the ones that lost all their jobs. So we ended up harming people because we were trying to attack a certain class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. There is this fallacy out there that that people are poor because others are rich, and that's simply not true. That's not what the studies show, and it's not what happens in reality. And it's very sad that we think that way because we look at other people and we envy what they have, and we try to take it by force, and we actually end up hurting ourselves. And I think that's really the libertarian ideal. The real libertarian concept is that when we use aggression to get our way, we do it because we think we're going to be richer, we're going to be happier, but in fact it backfires on us every time. That just doesn't work.
Okay. Well, we have to take a quick break, and we'd love if we could have you hold on through the break for us because we have many more questions for you.
Sure.
All right, we're going to head out to a quick break here on the Libertarian Solution. Don't forget to call in with your questions for Dr. Mary Ruwart at 480-949-1310. Welcome back to the Libertarian Solution. Don't forget to call in with any questions at 480-949-1310. We're here with Dr. Mary Ruwart. Mary, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're happy to have you. We wanted to talk a little bit about your book, Healing Our World. Now, I've read the 93 edition. I haven't read the more recent 2003 edition. But I have to say that in Chapter 1, my very favorite line, probably out of any book ever, is the one that prefaces the chapter. It's, "We are well aware that if we commit certain actions against our neighbors, fighting and impoverishment will result. Somehow we think these same actions create peace and plenty if applied to our community, state, nation, and world."
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great view of the way people interact with each other. They tend to be very libertarian on the individual level, but as soon as they get into groups, the mentality changes. Why do you have any reasons for why you think that might be?
Well, I think it's a matter of the way we use the words. And, for example, let's take the concept of taxation. You know, if you were my next-door neighbor and I came to you and I asked you for a donation for my favorite charity, if you said no, I'd probably say, well, thank you, I'll try another day. But, you know, if we don't do that when we interact group to group, if we feel, as we've been talking about, that say the rich aren't paying enough taxes, what we do is we go to the polls and we vote to take their money, literally at gunpoint, if necessary, and, you know, for our particular charity. And if a majority of people say it's okay, then we feel it's perfectly acceptable to take from the minority, kind of minority persecution.